The Personal History of David Copperfield, directed by Armando Iannucci, based on the novel by Charles Dickens, which I haven't read. The film stars Dev Patel, Hugh Laurie, Tilda Swinton, Peter Capaldi, Gwendolyn Christie, Morphy Clark, Ben Whishaw, and Benedict Wong. Sorry. It was made all the way back in 2018. It was originally supposed to open in theaters in late 2019, but in order to avoid competition from high-profile movies at the time, it was postponed. Then it opened in the UK at the beginning of this year, but before it could really spread to other markets, the pandemic hit. Now it's been made available online finally. The story, as the title may suggest, follows the life of David Copperfield, a boy who was orphaned at a very early age, sent off to London by his stepfather to work in a bottle factory, until one day he has enough and decides to go live his life elsewhere on his terms. And so begins this pursuit of joy, his story of maybe not rags to riches, but rags to happiness, at least. And it's a story filled to the brim with colorful, eloquent, and funny characters, which is the first and most important thing about the film. It has a stellar cast who are all given quite a lot to work with and to show their acting skills. And boy, does it work. Dev Patel is great in the lead role. My personal favorites, though, were Tilda Swinton and Hugh Laurie, who are clearly having a blast playing opposite one another. Interestingly, the film features what is called colorblind casting, which means that race had absolutely no bearing on whatsoever on who plays which character. This means that some of the family relationships maybe don't make much sense on first glance, like a very Asian father with a very black daughter. But as soon as you know what's going on, it's actually a pretty refreshing idea, I have to say. Especially as the story is framed as David Copperfield telling the story himself in retrospecting, which lends itself to being a bit more whimsical and fairy tale-ish than pure common sense real world. All of this results in a film that has this really eclectic, lively energy about it. There are so many scenes featuring lots of people at once, with them talking, shouting, emoting, running around, doing stuff. There's a lot going on, but I always felt it was this controlled chaos. It serves the story very well and it creates a world full of life and humor. Because the humor is ever present here. It's mainly comedy that is character driven, which I admittedly love. So there were a lot of moments where I really burst out laughing. One of my favorites, I think, comes towards the end, where, not to spoil anything, I later learned that the story thread of Dora, David's love interest, is closed differently in the film than in the book. It derives pretty heavily from the original novel. However, what the film does is very self-aware, with a kind of a meta joke with a wink at the audience, which I thought was very clever and very entertaining. There's a lot of joy to be found in the costumes, the sets, the color palette of the cinematography, and even though the film has moments where things go badly for the characters and there are sad notes, through most of the runtime it does manage to maintain this light-hearted, optimistic spirit, and ends up being a really pleasant, enjoyable movie. I have to say, looking at it on paper, I didn't expect to like it so much. I didn't think it looked sexy, but it ended up being a lot of fun, carried mainly by great performances and character interactions. It's probably not a film that will stay with me for a long time or be extremely memorable, but as a wonderful piece of entertainment filled with humor and heart, it does its job very well.